So we went to the Museum of Popular Culture in Seattle. What were your impressions of it?
I thought that it was neat that it was a Gary. He is the architect of the building, so it has a very distinct look, lots of metal and lots of curvature. So the building stands out, but I think that actually really works for a pop culture museum. There's something about that kind of contemporary style of architecture that complements what's inside of the museum as well. So right off the bat, the exterior kind of primes you to be getting ready and thinking about what you're going to see inside the museum. And I liked that right as you walk through the door, next to like the little cafe and the ticketing area, is the Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame. So that was the first exhibit that we did.
So what were your impressions of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame?
I thought it was really well laid out, well done. There were artifacts from some of the inductees, like for instance, Leonard Nimoy. He was represented by the outfit that he wore, like the top that he wore, I believe in the pilot episode for Star Trek. And I thought it was interesting because I don't know if it was just the color of the TVs or if the costume has faded over the years, but it was a lot more purple than I was expecting. But a lot of the people who were in the museum, they all had some type of artifact that was associated with them. And, obviously the little write-ups and everything. But what also was neat was that there was this interactive screen that let you find out more information about the inductees that didn't have some type of artifact and individual, like, part of the exhibit.
Okay. There are 3 other exhibits that we looked at. We looked at the fantasy exhibit, the horror exhibit, and finally the science fiction exhibit. What did you think of the horror exhibit?
I really liked how it was laid out. Again, kind of like talking about what primes you. So, and I think there were multiple ways into the exhibit, but we entered from the second floor. And from the second floor, you walk down this kind of like curving flight of stairs. And there were pictures of screaming human faces, like all down the stairs. And I think there was even audio of screams. So it kind of really primed you to get into that space. And then right when you left the stairwell, there were props of hanging bodies, but they were like in burlap sacks. So I just thought that was really cool. I also liked that there was quite a good variety of different focuses in the horror section. I know that they had stuff from like Friday the 13th and Halloween and Hellraiser, but they also had this really neat part. It was almost like its own room, and it was all about vampires, and it had stained glass, and then you would walk in, and then all kind of around the circular room was information about different vampire characters, and they had some artifacts and some set props from different shows in there, different movies. I can't remember off the top of my head any specific one, but I just thought that was, again, it was really neat how it was presented.
I thought it was amazing. They had one of the boxes from Hellraiser. That was really cool. Okay, so what did you think of the fantasy exhibit?
I like the fantasy exhibit too. The layout was like when you first walk through, there was almost like Hobbit doors. I think they might have even been rounded like Hobbit doors. And then there was like, it looked like trees on the inside. I know Conan sword, the one that Schwarzenegger, wielded in the movie, that was like one of the first prop exhibits when you walked into the fantasy space. But, I mean, yeah, again, same type of thing. It was, the space really complemented the genre well. There was a lot of set pieces from Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings in there. I know there was like a separate room of artwork, like fantasy really artwork. Cool.
They had Dungeons and Dragons art. They had Magic the Gathering art, World of Warcraft art. It's very cool. Okay, well, what did you think of the science fiction?
The science fiction one was, to my memory, I don't remember it being the space kind of in mimicking like the genre or reflecting the genre as directly. Now, I might be misremembering. Do you remember, was there any type of physical representation in the exhibit space that was similar to science fiction?
Some of the display cases were shaped like bulkheads and spaceships, But for the most part, I agree. The fantasy exhibit and the horror exhibit, that space was more shaped by the content. There were a lot of props in there that I really liked. Like the one that really impressed me was the Terminator skeleton from, I believe it was Terminator 2, from the opening scenes from Terminator 2, where you have the robot soldiers attacking the last humans.
I did like to, and I do regret not spending more time looking at, they had 3 display cases of various weapons from the different IP that was, represented or just part of popular culture, science fiction. And again, they had like a touch screen where you could be able to look up, if you didn't recognize a gun, like a plasma gun or whatever it would be, you could easily find it through the touch screen. They didn't have things marked, but it was really laid out well and still very accessible.
Okay, we talked about the science fiction, the fantasy, and the horror sections. We did see some other exhibits. Briefly touch on the other exhibits that were there.
So what surprised me a lot about the other exhibits was that it felt a lot like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I don't know if you'd ever gotten a chance to walk through it, but I'd been in there a very long time ago. And yeah, just like the other sections we walked through were very music focused, which again, music is obviously part of pop culture. I did like that there was a section of guitars, and didn't necessarily recognize all the guitarists. Can't think of a whole lot of the guitarists off the top of my head. I know they had a guitar from Dave Grohl in there. They also had one from Woody Guthrie, and it wasn't like the one you see in the pictures where, in big letters, it says "This machine kills fascists," but it did have it carved on the back, so you could see the guitars from both the back and the front. So we were able to check out the Woody Guthrie guitar and be able to see where he did write that. And I liked seeing the usage of the equipment, even if I didn't understand the difference between the guitars.
Yeah, there were some other cool exhibits, and I'm not sure if they were rotating or if they were static. I'm pretty sure that the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror were static, but there was one on gay rights activism. It was a history of Stonewall and marriage equality, and there was an exhibit on indie game design, which was really cool. There were a lot of consoles set up so you could play these indie games, and also gave the history of indie game design.
There was one on Jimi Hendrix.
Oh yeah, there was a Jimi Hendrix one too. I don't think we
got to go through that one, but it was there. And I know they had some other parts of the museum, like they had like a movie theater, right? Mm-hmm. Or there was something about sound there, but it was closed.
There's a movie theater that was showing 3 films. I don't know if they were documentaries or if they were virtual representations of events. One was a film of a Jimi Hendrix concert. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't get to see any of the films. We saw a lot.
There's a lot in the museum, and like I said, it was a neat experience, kind of seeing the exterior and how it kind of primed you to be thinking about these different types of pop culture artifacts and how have they played in a role in shaping our society. And especially if you think about what Seattle is, well, I guess in particular, that's probably why they had so much music, because of the grunge scene and how many important musical acts have come out of the city. So I don't know, I just thought it was really fun. It was a great way to spend some time one afternoon, for sure. It was right next to the Space Needle too, so you're kind of like right in the center of Seattle.
If you're in Seattle, I highly recommend the Popular Culture Museum. All right, well, thank you very much. The music was provided by Mitch Hunt. The song is Perfect Life. It's on Spotify. Thanks for listening.